Today we're going to be making some beef jerky. Starting the process of. About an hour ago, I threw my I've round beef in the freezer. You can see, pretty solid chunk. It's still squishy-ish, but you can definitely tell it's got some frozen to it. The main reason for that, just makes it easier to cut. It's really the only reason you ever need to freeze something like this. So, as always, one of the more important things when doing a job, proper tools. Get yourself a nice flexible knife. That's what's really gonna help you out. I like this little cheap, I think it was like 10 bucks on the internet. Nice little jerky slicer, just piece of metal, nice little hole in between, and that knife just slides right on through. So, pretty easy. Obviously, you just cut right along and does nice little, right now it's set up for 1/8 inch slices, but it can be quarter, kind of adjust it however I feel like it. Anyway, not only is it important to have the right tools, but to make sure that your tools are actually in proper working order. So they ought to be sharp. So make sure you get your blade nice and sharp. There's no harm in, taking that, sharpening it up a little bit in the middle if you need to. I always recommend wiping it off if you don't want to take any little pieces of metal into your food. Some people might like that. I don't personally. But here we go. We're just going to cut it into slices. And as you can see, the fat is very, very obvious. This isn't a very marbled piece of meat. There's only a little bit that runs through it. That's personally why it's one of my favorites to use. Okay, so once you have your meat all cut, next you gotta move on to your seasonings. I personally, I like my barbecue. I like that smokiness with that subtle sweetness behind it. Added to the fact that I'm also diabetic, I don't want to add a bunch of sugar to things. That's why it's gonna seem strange. This is what I marinate with. This is my liquid. I don't use water, I don't use any kind of vinegar, apple cider vinegar, whatever you want to use. I use a Diet Dr. Pepper. 1 can will cover everything, get the job done.
Hashtag not sponsored.
Now, that is what soaks into the meat, but you still got to give it a little kind of flavor, right? So here I got my applewood and garlic barbecue mix. It's going to be nice. It adds a little bit of smokiness to it with that applewood in there, but it's a nice, good mix. I wish you could smell or vision this, but you can't, unfortunately. So obviously you got your seasonings, you got your meat, and get your hashtag not sponsored Ziploc bag. It doesn't have to be Ziploc. I personally have these in my house, so that is what I'm using. You can do it kind of however you want. You can tell this meat is still really cold. It's totally not a big deal. It's gonna thaw. Who cares if it's marinating while it's thawing? It's actually one of the things I tend to do. I will marinate some while it's defrosting. No reason not to. So, there's a couple ways you can do it. You really just gotta make sure that everything is properly seasoned. So what I like to do is get me a couple pieces right on in there. Sure. Put a couple pieces in your bag, make sure they get nice and coated. No reason to be, what's the word? Not generous. Stingy. Nice. I'm gonna count that one as a win for me. I think I said it before. So anyway, you just gotta make sure that your piece is all nice nice and soaked up. And I don't know what happened there, but we had an incident. We're gonna have to adjust. That piece did not want to cut properly. Because I got that big old slab of fat running right down the side. And frozen fat is not the most fun material to work with. That's looking better, and that's more what we want. Alright, and we're gonna call that good. As you can see, I'm getting shockingly close to cutting my hand open. So we'll just smoke that guy a little extra long. All your pieces thrown in there, make sure they all get nice and seasoned. Dump that whole thing around in there. And then before I add my liquid, I always like to make sure things get nice and mixed up first. Just because you'll pull pieces out and they'll be stuck together. And you'll realize you've got two pieces that are heavily seasoned on one side and barely seasoned on the inside. And this isn't all that great. Evenness. That's what barbecue comes down to. Being able to maintain and keep an average. Crack a cold one. The diet soda. Really of whatever you choose. But I personally think hashtag not sponsored Dr. Pepper is a good choice. It has a lot of that sweetness that you're looking for, but it doesn't make it candy. It's not like a Coke. If you added a Coca-Cola to this, it would be too sweet. It would start to break down your meat too much with all the sugar and stuff you've got in there. Next step is always rinse your hands off, because you don't want to close this. Be sucking out that air, touching raw meat. You can, but if you're like me, your hands aren't as clean as they should be most of the time. One thing to be aware of, if you use a soda, careful when you breathe out this, or suck out the air that's in here. You want to get as little air as possible, just so you know that everything's being contained and covered. But something to pay attention to, if you use a soda, you're going to breathe in that straight carbonation air. It can get you lightheaded, so be careful. I like to let it sit for usually a minute before I actually do that. But as you can see, it's not vacuum sealed, but it's pretty tight. If I wanted to, I could get it tighter, but it's going in a refrigerator. It's going to take whatever's air that's in there, and it's just going to shrink it up a little bit more. So this is where we're at. We'll see you guys in 18 hours. All right, guys, so we're actually going to start making our beef jerky today. So about a day and a half ago, I did all my seasoning and marinating. Cut to right now, got our grill, or smoker in this case. It's combo, so a little pellet grill, smoker action. It's preheating right now. You want to go as low as possible, pretty much. Minimum on this guy's 165, which I personally think is fine. You can go lower. You also can go higher. About 160, 165 is where you want to get. The longer that you can cook it, the better it'll be. You don't want to cook it for so long it turns into chalk, but you don't want to cook it so it's still like a steak. You want it dried out. You can either do it on a smoker like this, the way we're going to do it today, or you can also buy a dehydrator, same type of idea. a lot smaller, just sucks all the moisture out. So we're gonna wait for this to finish preheating. And since it's sitting in the sun, it's gonna say that it's a lot higher than it actually is. Because it's a metal box sitting in the sun with a fire inside. But it's not actually that hot, so I'm using another temp reader just to make sure that I'm pretty close to where I want to be. So while we wait for this, we'll get our meat prepared. So we got our meat that's been marinating for about a day and a half now. And the main point of jerky is you want to suck out all the moisture. As you can see, it's just sitting and dripping in a whole big bag of wetness. So, take it out. You don't need to get every single drop off of it. It'll cook quicker if you do. A lot of times what'll happen, sometimes you can get kind of a sticky consistency on the outside of it. Just from the sugars or whatever it's in it starting to melt and bubble up. So it can get a little sticky. Sometimes that can make it a little chewy. So you don't want to take it straight out of this bag and put it directly onto the grill. Not to mention, it'll vastly lower your cooking temp, and that's not what you want. Completely ruins the whole idea of preheating something. We're gonna do it like that. So once we get this all separated out, we'll do a quick dry and throw it onto our grill and smoker and get to work. So we've got our grill smoker all preheated. Got, for the most part, our meat all aired out. What we're gonna do, we'll just line them all out, get it cooking.
This is check number 2, and now we see it's really darkening. Poke the meat. This one's a little thicker, so that one's quite not as done. But we're getting there. I think we're gonna pull these very shortly. We're at the 2.5 hour mark. All right, so now what we're doing is we are removing it and putting it on a napkin-lined paper plate. So that way, see, because it is a little moist and we want to get rid of that moisture. So I've got some more paper towels here. That way we can split it up and we're not stacking too much on there. But yeah, this is looking really good. Look at that. Perfect. All right, and then what we're gonna do is we're gonna cover this up and we're gonna put it in a Ziploc bag. We're gonna leave it open. That way we can get rid of that excess moisture. All right, so we're gonna leave it in this bag probably for like an hour or two, just to let the paper towels get that moisture out and let it dry out even more, and then it'll be ready to eat.